Bollywood is a familiar dance style for most people. It's spread all over the world with its fusion of traditional Indian, folk, and even modern hip-hop influence. But it's not the only type of Indian cultural dance. Rishu Gandhi practices a type called Kathak dance, and it's an important part of her heritage.
Ever since I was a kid, I was actually a trained dancer in Bharatanatyam, which is another Indian classical dance form. So when I was little, I don't remember how old I was, but I know as soon as I started walking. So my inspiration for Kathak, I would say, comes from Bharatanatyam. They do differ in terms of, very technicality, and Kathak has a lot of expression associated with it too. So I think it's beautiful, and it does touch on, like cultural aspect of Indian dance form. So Kathak, I would say, is the only Indian classical dance form that originated from North India. So it's amazing, and I've been learning about it for 3 to 4 years, and I love it. So I do give a lot of credit to my mom and my dad for introducing me at a young age. And I genuinely do appreciate my Indian culture, my roots. That's where I come from, through my dance journey as well, because, that comes part of it, like costumes, wearing certain clothes like saris and dressing up for performances and stuff. So it's amazing.
But it's not just dance performance. The Kathak style includes a test element with it as well.
So I just gave my written exam. I have a, physical exam in like 2 months. So I'm transitioning from my 3rd year to 4th year. So the first 2 years, you don't do a highly technical Kathak performances. So in other words, it's called nritta. Nritta means there's a lot of like footwork. Okay. So you don't do a lot of them because you're still learning the fundamentals. It's like learning alphabets. But then after you mastered all the alphabets, then you start making sentences. So that's how it works in Kathak too. So we learn like the fundamentals in the first 2 years. Then we really start to perform. So then we do like a, very classical dance piece. It takes years of experience to learn that. So I have a deep respect towards those people who has, kept it alive through their dance forms and by performances.
While there's a cultural interpretation to this style of dance, Rishu appreciates that it has allowed her to connect with her community here in the United States.
There's a New York Kathak Festival that happens every year. That's another great way to promote dancers and promote the dance form itself. So there are amazing maestros, Kathak maestros from India. They travel here, and we do. It's like a recital, like a nice, like 3 days program. So it's amazing, yeah.
This is the Ready Test Go podcast, brought to you by Applause. I'm David Carty. Today we are live at the Open Data Science Conference East here at Heinz Convention Center in Boston. My first guest is Rishu Gandhi, Senior Data Engineer in Cybersecurity at Wells Fargo. Our conversation runs the gamut of everything AI, but especially focuses on responsible and ethical AI. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's start with a basic question. What is responsible AI? And from the perspective of a data enthusiast, how should it be implemented across the business?
Yeah, so I'll break it down very simple. So responsible AI is, designing, developing, and utilizing artificial intelligence technologies in a manner that upholds societal values, respect human rights, and, reduces potential harms to humans and communities. So it's like, if you're building AI-driven solutions or product, make sure they're ethically correct and they're not harming anyone. So from a business standpoint, how we would implement that, to be honest, we would implement it in every stage of data science journey. So that would be, in the design phase, development phase, and after development, which is deployment phase. So we need to ensure that we practices, in each phase of life, and it doesn't end there. We also need to make sure once we release our product, we need to continuously monitor and see what it does to the society. If it's not doing what it intended to do, then we need to, redo the whole process. So it's more like an iterative approach. So it should be implemented in each stage of, data science product journey, yeah.
Right, that's exactly what I was going to follow up with. So it's not a one and done sort of thing. It's about iterating on what you've already put in place, just like you iterate on the product itself and what you've built, right? And I imagine part of that is soliciting different perspectives as well, right? Because what you would consider responsible and ethical, maybe I don't, or maybe somebody else doesn't, right? So it's about, trying to gather those opinions and make sure that everybody's being served in a way that is helpful and not harmful, right?
Absolutely, and what you just described, that's actually one of the core principles of responsible AI, which is called inclusiveness. So you want to make sure the products, the AI products that you build, I mean, it's true, it won't be, focusing and like considering everyone, because let's say if there's a healthcare related product, obviously it's going to benefit the healthcare community more than someone from the financial, community. But like on a higher level, it's important that we be mindful and be inclusive towards, like diverse backgrounds and communities, how our products can be accessible and beneficial to the majority of the masses. So that's where we would want to take human feedback and then, reiterate it and make sure like we're constantly improving. I mean, improvement is the only constant,
Right.
So
Right.
in any case.
Yeah. So how do you go about sort of implementing those feedback loops like you're talking about and trying to identify maybe underrepresented or misrepresented groups that maybe you missed in the initial phase of requirements gathering or however you identified that at the starting point?
So I would, we would do it in the design phase. So let's say like whichever objective that we're trying to achieve, and our AI, let's say we're trying to build an AI application with a certain objective. We need to, the way we collect data, we can be mindful about that. So just to give an example, let's say I want to build an AI-driven app where, it helps scan resumes of, applicants and at least helps in filtering down because you get like millions of resumes, let's say in a month.
Right.
How can you filter it down? So let's say that's what you're doing. So when you do the data collection process, you want to make sure you're actually taking the historical data of successful hires from different backgrounds. So it cannot be just from University X and Y. You want to make sure you're including all the universities. You're also considering, whatever the key metrics that you want to collect, you're including all demographics too. And once you collect the data, then you can also, do a little bit data exploration. So that's like a one side of this whole data science journey. So in the data exploration side, you can learn about the data that you collect. So are there any biases? Is certain demographic overly represented or underly represented? If that's the case, then how do you address that? Because let's say if your algorithm learned, that all of these successful hires are from University X, it's going to know that University X, I'm going to hire this person. But that's not the case, right? Then we're not being, we're not promoting diversity at workplace. So that way you can, make sure how to kind of tackle those issues, and definitely in the design phase, because once you concur that part, then it becomes much easier because, garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not putting the garbage in, you will get something useful out of it on the other end, yeah.
Right. It all starts with high quality data, right? That's the foundation for everything that we're talking about here at the show today,
yeah.
and everything that you're putting out there into the world, right? And as you talk about with that, you're trying to identify biases in the data as best as you can. It's probably difficult to get to the bottom of all of it, though, right? I mean, at some level, there's always going to be some bias involved, and systems are supposed to make, calculated decisions based on this data. So how do you maybe go a level deeper in trying to identify some biases that might not be obvious right at the forefront there?
So let's say you did not, and you're right, sometimes, the algorithm, even though you did all your measures accurately, let's say you don't see it in the design phase. You may not even see it in development phase. But see, again, you can actually, check responsibility AI in every aspect. So let's say in the development phase, one way you could look for it is the explainability of your algorithm. So that's where, your model needs to be transparent and explainable. What do I mean by that? So, I think right now there's, this hype for AI, like any magic that we see in terms of technology space, like especially non-technical people, they're like, that's AI. Okay, what is AI? So there's like a black box, like your data, goes in, it does some magic and it comes out. But what does really happen in black box? So if we have transparency and, explainability of what really happens in that algorithm, then we can see more insight. So let's say your model, in the development phase, it says that, okay, I made this prediction because of this. So we can learn what are those 3 points that it, produced its, conclusion from. If we see, okay, I see, maybe it's picking University X all the time. Okay, maybe Y. So there's a bias. Let's go back. Let's maybe add some more data, which is fairer data. Or maybe let's, fine tune our design phase again. So make sure we're not seeing that. So that's in the development phase. We could do the similar, thought process in the deployment phase too. So once your model is built, whatever predictions it gives out, if it deviates from what you intended to do, we have to go to the iterative approach. So that's something I would say, yeah.
Right. And how important is that interpretability and transparency, especially when it comes to being accountable to regulators? I think that, we all kind of anticipate a little bit more regulation in this space moving forward. So how important is it to maintain those qualities?
I think it's really important for multiple reasons. First and foremost, I would say, hefty fines, depending on where you're located, like, or where your company's located, whether it's, local or international rules and like regulations. If it falls under that umbrella, then you need to be compliant, because I know, like, there's this European Union Code of Conduct, which I know they adopted it in March of this year, but it may go in action, I think next month or in June. They have a fines up to 35 million euros, or 7% of the global revenue of, that company operating, in the EU area. So that's one motivator, like, why it really needs to be implemented. And I think accountability from, like, a technical perspective, it also helps to address, issues that are there and how we can solve them. So we can have, we can hold people responsible for whatever the consequences that come, from our AI-driven solution. So we need to have some accountability, especially when we go to the audit phase, audit and review. So we know, okay, why a certain decision was made, who made it. So if, let's say, and I'm not pinpointing, a specific, like a group, but let's say, I'll just pick my example, me as a data engineer. Let's say I made a certain decision. It's somewhere there that Rishu Gandhi did this. Let's say we do an audit phase, and it's like, why does she do it? Maybe let's teach her not to do this, or let's, kind of take another approach. So how do we know that? Because we're being accountable for our own actions. And that's where I think it becomes very important to have that accountability and also, like, transparency aspect of it.
How difficult is it to try to enforce change? I think everybody is very enthusiastic about what all of these different AI capabilities are moving forward, but trying to slow things down to incorporate more of this sort of visibility, transparency, logging, whatever the case may be, it can be a little bit difficult, I imagine, right? Everybody's trying to move faster, trying to realize more efficiency gains, more profitability. How can you sort of enforce change to arrive at that level of accountability that you need to be at?
That's a good question, and you're right. I agree with you. I think all of us were moving really fast, especially, after the OpenAI, the ChatGPT that came out 2 years ago. I think it's like everyone's, just we're in this AI race. But I think firstly, it's like, first we can recognize that, okay, we're not in a race against it, we're for it. AI could be our friend. So, like, certain things we really need to be mindful to really address these issues. And to be honest, like, there is no one solution that fits all. It's also, just by experience, we're going to come across multiple issues. But, while that happens, in the meantime, we can stay educated, on the latest trends. What is happening in the AI space? Like, what are the rules and regulations that are occurring? And understand why they're even occurring. Because maybe something happened, right? That's where it came from. So just be staying educated about those things. I think that helps a lot. And as we explore more, I think what we can do as a community is to be self-aware, stay upon it, like, spread the awareness around our community, and also, even among the non-technical community too. So once the problem arises, we're aware of the problem, so we can fix it sooner, rather than, just kind of laying it out there, and then it turns out, oh my God, this happened, what do we do now? Then, so all that fiasco. I think, so I think we should take it upon ourselves to be educated about it.
Yeah, so be proactive,
Exactly.
spread that education, right? Don't try to bury mistakes or anything like that. Understand that it's a learning process.
It is a
and,
learning
and be,
process,
yeah,
for sure,
exactly.
yeah.
Hold yourself accountable and the team accountable for that, right?
Absolutely.
How valuable can the human perspective be in validating all of this, right? I mean, we talked about this in the beginning of, there are these different cultural perspectives or different, human or customer needs that can vary quite a bit one way or the other. So how valuable is that human perspective in making sure you have an ethical, responsible sort of system?
Yeah, I think it's very important. And to be honest, like, we could never not have humans monitor AI systems. I mean, that would be a very scary world, to be honest. So, I mean, if you think about it, I'm going to talk, I guess, more in the philosophical term, but like, we've been here for millions of years. So we know what feels right and what doesn't feel right. Does AI know that? Maybe, maybe not. It's almost like, let's say you have a kid, right? Like, the kid is like a blank slate. whatever you teach your kid, that's how they become. So similarly, machines, we can keep teaching them, but there won't be a point where we're like, you know what, I've taught you everything, now you go do everything. No, because again, that's the machine versus, humans. For humans, after a certain age, you become self-aware of your own. You learn on your own. With the machines, they don't have ethical aspect of it. They can learn that, but we have to teach it. So I think human feedback is definitely necessary. And also, it's also important to, having human feedback in your building your AI applications, it builds trust, among the communities, because we know that the AI systems that we're making, we can trust them, and it will actually help, like broader adoption and acceptance of the solutions, because we know the human feedback was implemented. So I think having human feedback is definitely important. And let's say if anything goes south, we need humans to fix that, right? Otherwise, if machine were to fix its own self, I personally would not trust it. Like,
Right.
I would want human feedback to be implemented. And sometimes, like we have this, like preconceived notions that my product will do this in real world. It turns out it does not do that. Or I thought that maybe that's how my consumers would take it as, but they don't. So having that human feedback in the design phase helps a lot, because at the end of the day, who are going to be the consumers? It'll be the humans, right? So let's ask them their feedback. What do they like to see? How do they intend to use this app? So I think that way, human feedback is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're getting at is there's a real business value to doing that. I think thinking about it conceptually, trying to roll humans into this process. I think from a business standpoint, when you're talking about going so fast and you have this black box that kind of seems like magic sometimes and what it's capable of, you might think, well, if you're slowing down to accommodate and account for more human perspective, that can take away from the value. But in reality, like you're saying, it actually helps with adoption. It helps with confidence in the product in the long run, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. From a software quality standpoint, digital quality standpoint, what's your biggest concern about AI-infused systems moving forward? And what are some things that organizations can do to address those concerns?
I think my biggest concern, at least something that I came across, in my research and in general, I think it's bias, potential bias, really. And I think it is a scary phase. Like, I think it's a very scary phase. So I think potentially bias it is risky, and we need to know how to tackle that. I'll give you one example. Let's say, and I actually talked about this in my presentation. So, like one of the example was, let's say, you have an AI-driven medicine help app, which basically its intention to help doctors prescribe, medicines based on like a patient's lab work and, maybe a little bit of like their past visits history, right? So let's say you have an AI-driven app. If it doesn't practice responsible AI, what do I mean by that? If it doesn't reduces bias, or it doesn't have a data quality checks that addresses bias, what could happen? I'll give you an example of what would happen. So imagine it would actually lead to inaccurate medications. Why? Because the data that collected and that was trained on, maybe, that your data quality, maybe let's say it was either overrepresented or underrepresented some of the demographics. So, and it doesn't take into consideration of, like every patient is different. Their genetic history is different. Each race will have their respective genetic history, which affects a lot of things, right? So if the bias is not reduced and tackled, you're kind of feeling like a person like me, let's say I'm found with diabetes versus another person. Like, it's not necessary that the medicine would work on him or her, would work on me as well, because I have my own respective genetic history. So I think, that's where like bias is, very risky. So we need to make sure that the data that we collect, it fairly represents all the demographics. So this is just one example. I could use the same example that I used about, the resume checker. Like biases, let's say if it's biased towards certain universities, it's gonna, it's disadvantages to very very like educated talent and candidates who just got rejected based on, because they were from university A instead of university X. So again, there's bias issues that are happening. So a lot of work we need to do in how we collect the data and what measures we take, to fix the biases. I think it's very important. So that's something I'm scared, but at the same time, I'm glad that we're talking about it, right? Because the more we talk about it, the more we can find ways to fix it. So
Right.
that's good.
the scope of the problem is potentially massive when you think about all the different industries involved. I mean, you talk about lending decisions or, college acceptance, whatever example you want to bring up from any industry, you're relying on decades worth of data that could be problematic, right? It's hard to root out some of those challenges with the data, but it's ultimately the task that we have to prep ourselves for moving forward, right? Because ultimately you can achieve great things if you're able to identify some of those challenges, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Big broad question, but when you think about the future, and I think when you're at a conference like this, it's easy to think about, wow, there's so many intriguing possibilities of where we could go. Where do you hope that we will be in terms of AI-infused products and implementation, and how do we get to that ideal sort of future?
That's an amazing question, and so I'm a very optimistic person in general. So, and I'm glad because a lot of talks at the conference, I've been noticing a lot of them either directly or indirectly talks about responsible AI. It has other synonyms like responsible AI, ethical AI, considerable AI. These are all just synonyms, but they all come back to the same, statement that, hey, let's be responsible and wise about how we use AI in our day-to-day lives. So what I envision is, when I say I envision, it's my personal, it's my personal, idea of how we would be. I think our lives will definitely be AI dependent. I mean, AI has become an integral part of our lives. If anything, it's going to be even more and more. So we cannot run away from it. It's about time we recognize that AI is here to stay. It's our friend. So one thing, as a consumers, let's try to use it in our advantage. But at the same time, let's be mindful. So one example, like last year I visited Italy, and I did like a little Europe trip with my parents. We planned an entire trip using ChatGPT.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but for example, but it was, since I'm the owner of my own data, so I would make sure I would not input, hey, like my name is Rishu Gandhi, I want to go here. Obviously not. But it's like, if you use it smartly, it's actually much helpful. And it helps you like plan a lot of things that it might take you more time, So I think that will become the more norm. We will use it in our day-to-day lives. And another thing that I do see what would happen is, so right now, definitely the governance side is definitely there. They're talking about AI. Why? Because there needs to be, proper restrictions onto how we use it and all the governance and risk and compliance side of it. But what I do see is in future, we will have just more experts from various backgrounds collaborating together. And, let's everyone sit at the table and talk about, this is the AI product. What is your opinion? So one expert might be from, like a psychology domain, one person from an economy domain, because it does affect literally all, all other domains. So all of the experts from different backgrounds, sitting at the same table discussing how we can ensure that if me comes, let's say if I come from like a financial background, okay, I do see this, but I also see these problems. So let's be mindful. Someone from, economical, background, they might have a different approaches to the same problem. So it's important that we do that. So the idea is that, we really demonstrate our commitment to using data and technology for the betterment of, humanity. So I think that's something that I hope to see in future, that we'll be just doing it more.
And most importantly, as a travel planner, ChatGPT gets a thumbs up. Did you have a great trip?
I loved it. Yeah, absolutely. And there were some times, let's say I'm waiting at this like local train station in London, and I'm like, my train is late for an hour. Tell me 5 things to do around this location. There it is. Like, it's like, oh, you can do this, you can do that. I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
like having
something,
a personal assistant in your pocket, right?
It is, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Rishu, lightning round questions for you here. First, what is your definition of digital quality?
My definition would be, any digital product that is made with ethical considerations in mind. So, we realize that human feedback is necessary. So that's also something we consider. So, and also I think another aspect would be inclusiveness. So let's be mindful when we create our data, it's accessible and beneficial to majority of the, communities and society. So that would be a great digital quality product for me.
Great. How will AI evolve in the next 5 years?
It will definitely be, like I mentioned, it's going to be in our day-to-day lives even more, from, I don't know, like buying, like laundry pots, from buying this to that. Like we'll constantly be talking about it. And another thing that I do see it happening, especially in my household. So my parents, they come from a generation where obviously there was not that many digital products, right? The fact that they're starting to learn and use it. So that's something that I'm really excited about too, how they can use it to their advantage. So, like just little things. It's like we could all be smart people just by, using it responsibly and getting the information that we need to do whatever we want. So I think it's an amazing tool.
Yeah, you can check yourself on an assumption that you're making on the fly, right? Or you can deepen your knowledge on something on the fly or on your car ride, from work to home. I mean, there are so many possibilities for learning, I think, and this is something about our day-to-day lives today. I mean, we have more possibilities to learn, it feels like, every day. And you just hope people take advantage of that. And this is another avenue for that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What is your favorite app to use in your downtime?
I would say for like educational content, I would say YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I also do watch a lot of podcasts. So I think I think YouTube is one place for all. And for entertainment purpose, like the Netflix is a good one. Amazon Prime, there are some good shows that they have. So for entertainment purpose, I would say those. That's where I get, the entertainment and fun from my life.
Great. And what is something that you are hopeful for?
I'm hopeful to be alive, to be doing this today. No, I'm hopeful, just, I guess, learning new things, unlearning different things too, because sometimes we have preconceived notions about whether it's people or, just things in life in general. And so sometimes we need to unlearn that too, so that we can learn different perspectives. So just here to learn, talk to people, yeah.
Yeah, it's an ongoing job, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Well, Rishu, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. And absolutely, you have been a great host. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
We want to once again thank Rishu Gandhi, Senior Data Engineer in Cybersecurity at Wells Fargo. And we want to thank the ODSC team as well for helping us out here at the show. Thanks to our producers, Joe Stella and Sam Susala, and our creative team as well, including Megan Golick and Carly Searles. You know what to do. Drop a comment, leave a review, help us out by subscribing to the podcast, or you can just let us know what you think about the podcast by emailing podcasts@applause.com. We'll catch you next time.